right, 7:02. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mr. George, honored to be the Honors English 10 teacher at Borstal Central, but mostly honored that you are here and just really thankful that you've taken the time to get in your car and go somewhere and spend an hour and a half with us. That really means a lot to me and means a lot to these incredible students that are about to present to you. So just a little bit of information. Could someone bring me the clicker from back there, please? So a little bit of information for you. This is the culmination of thank you so much. This is the culmination of our public speaking unit, which pretty much lasts all year in Honors English 10. And they gave a TED Talk to 50 to 75 students in our school, and then they were able to apply for this evening and be a part of FHC Inspires to present to you. And these are the best of the best, and these are just great kids. As you know, you're their parents and their grandparents and their aunts and their uncles and their friends, so you know. But these are great, great, great kids. What else I want to tell you? A couple of things in front of you. I hope you have notepads and pens. If you do not have a notepad and a pen, so here's the master plan with that. While you watch the speakers, I would love for you to write a note to speakers that motivated you or that meant something to you. And then in the back, when you came in, you probably saw there are shoe boxes back there. And on the way out, I would love for you to drop your notes in the shoe boxes as you leave. They are in speaker order, left to right. If you are currently not holding a pen and a notepad and you wish you were, I have people right here who would love to give you one. And I know previous speakers have loved going through their shoebox and reading their notes afterwards. So why don't you just come on out, ladies, and walk out. And could you raise your hand if you need a notepad and a pen, and the ladies will take care of you. That would be great. The next thing I would like to explain to you is after the show, the speakers will run into the lobby, and we do have a balloon arch out there with the FHC Inspires poster, and we'd love for you to take some pictures with your family. And they're still coming around with notepads, so that's great. And then during the show, Alex Smith will be taking some pictures, great student at FHC, taking some pictures as well, so we will have some pictures. There are a lot of hands up, ladies. If you can bring more over here. We have a lot of hands in this area here. Where are we out of notepads? That's impossible. I ordered 300. Are there any at that door? Okay, someone near you will split a notepad. I see it happening right there. Look at that, teamwork. Appreciate you. All right, and the next thing I want to talk to you briefly about is inspiration. I don't know about you, but I spend much of my life reading books, thinking about, talking with my wife, who I'm sure is here somewhere, about ways to be inspired and try to get more out of life. I urge you to just open up your brain today for an hour and a half and see if you can walk out of here a different person. Not just motivated by how incredible these kids are, but also motivated by their messages today. And I just urge you to open your mind, write down some notes, and think about where you are in your life, which I think about all the time in my life, and what can we do differently and how can we be better. I do have some special introductions, which I'm really excited about. We have 27 former FHC Inspires speakers. I see all of you, and I'm going to miss a couple of you. I told you to email me, and some of you didn't, but I would like all these people, they spoke over the last 5 years. This is the 5th annual. If these people could please stand, and then we'll clap all the way at the end. And holy cow, there's some of you I see out there who did not email me, but I'm going to try to say, did you say your name? All right. So, Supreet is here. Letizia. Ava Van Til. So stand when I say your name, that would be great. Emmy Williman. Olivia Orbeck, Ellie McDowell, Lily Ullman, Iman Hamad, Sanya Mishra, Andrew Shire, Hannah Levering, Gia Niemeyer, Caitlin Heilman, Millie Alt, Penny O'Mara, Ava Redman, Gia Patel, Molly O'Mara, Aiden O'Mara, Maggie Shimmick, Jordan Carlson, Lucy Yoder, Emily Rook, Nathaniel Hahn, Emma Van Tongeren, Kira Kempinen, Maya Fitzgerald, Paige Harsevort, and if you are here and you didn't email me, god darn it, stand as well if you're a previous speaker from FHC Inspires. They spoke previously and they have come back to watch more. Can we have a huge round of applause for our speakers from before? All right. Huge thank you to Jeremy for being here late to put on the show. We're going to get started. It is rapid fire TED Talk time. You have a notepad. Please feel free to take some notes or write each person a note and put it in the shoebox on the way out. I am honored and privileged to introduce our very first speaker, here is Reagan.
So my name is Reagan, and I am named after Ronald Reagan. For most of my childhood, this was like my entire personality. I looked up things about him, I read books about him, and I would just constantly tell people that I was named after him. This was just a fun fact about myself that gave me a lot of confidence so I could always talk to people. But as I got older and I started to learn about his policy and the legacy he created, I kind of stopped sharing this with people. I also stopped raising my hand in class or talking to other kids my age. I really just stopped doing anything that would require my name being said. I went from being an extrovert to an introvert just because of what I thought of my name. My personality changed entirely. There are actually many other ways that your name can affect your personality, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. The first is not liking your name, and this is what I experienced. People who don't like their name are more likely to struggle with self-confidence issues and just struggle to talk to other people in general because you have to say your name, and if you don't like saying your name, it's kind of hard to talk to people. I was super outgoing as a kid, but as I started to not like my name, I got really shy and timid. My parents started to realize this, and they bought me this book. They thought I hated myself, but little did they know that it was actually just because of the name that they had given me. The next way is through rejection. People face rejection based on their name all the time, especially on the internet. This is what a Snapchat quick ad looks like. As you can see, all you get to know about someone is their Bitmoji and their name. So their name kind of carries a lot of weight when I'm deciding whether or not to add them back. And if you've got some weird name like Edgar, I'm probably not going to add you back. Because the point of adding someone on Snapchat is to talk to them, maybe even date them, and I am not about to date Edgar. You are 16 years old, why is your name Edgar? That's just not happening. I just think that's kind of weird. And I'm sure there are tons of other guys with the exact same Bitmoji whose names aren't Edgar. Edgar probably faces a lot of rejection in his life, especially romantic rejection, just because of his name. He's probably a little bit bitter and maybe even unlikable because of all this rejection. When people reject you, you reject them. So he's rejecting a lot of people internally, and he's just a little bit unlikable and hard to get along with. Sorry, Edgar, but it's probably true. The final way your name can affect your personality is through uniqueness. People with unique names are often more unique. This is because when they go to school for the very first time, they realize that they're different from others at a much earlier age than other people realize. This gives them time to grow into their uniqueness, get comfortable with being different, and really embrace it as a good quality about them. You can see this in people like Zendaya. I mean, she doesn't even have a last name because her first name is just that unique. There's only one Zendaya. And she is super confident in herself and super confident in just being different, being unique, and that's all thanks to her name and given that power with her name of just having a different one and making it one more thing to be different about herself. As we've learned today, your name can affect your personality, whether it's through not liking your name, having a unique one, or even facing more rejection because of your name. I know that my name has affected my personality, but that's not really something I can change. My name is always going to be Reagan, and whether I like it or not, my parents always intended it to be named after Ronald Reagan. But what I've learned is that Ronald Reagan is not what makes my name special. What makes my name special is that it's mine.
Please welcome our next speaker. This is Izzy.
As you guys can see, here are a few of my text messages. And to you all, they may seem like three forms of okay that all mean the same exact thing. But to me, they all mean three different things. For instance, the first one is just O and K. It's okay, the conversation's short, the conversation's dry, it's just basic, there's nothing much to it. The second one is okay, and it's it's okay, we're both kind of putting in effort, there's nothing much to it, it's just simple, it's just going well, it's not great, it's not bad. The third one, which is my personal favorite, is okay, with 3 exclamation points. We're both putting in lots of effort, I'm excited, I'm telling you about how I'm going to Italy next summer, you're telling me about how you just did really good on your math test, and all is well. And now you may be thinking, Izzy, why are you putting so much thought into 3 one-word responses? And this is all because I overthink. Overthinking is a really bad habit of mine that I've tried to break, believe me. And everyone has those bad habits, and it's okay. Like for instance, my mom's is gardenscaping, and my brother's is not cleaning up their side of their bathroom sink. And now as you know with bad habits, like I just said, they're not easily broken, and because it's a bad habit of mine, it kind of creates this like wall where I can't trust people. On the screen behind me, you can see a bunch of my friends. And because I overthink, I don't trust myself, and then I can't trust them. For instance, there have been so many times with my friends where they don't respond right away, and my first thought is, oh my gosh, I said something wrong, I did something wrong, maybe I didn't say enough, maybe I was too nice, maybe I was too mean. I think of the worst possible things for no reason. And the same thing goes with my family. My mom, whether I like it or not, I'm a lot like her, but I'm also like my dad. And no offense to my dad, he does not think rashly a lot of times, but my mom does. And like with my mom, if she came into my room and I was crying over a bad math grade that I got, and I didn't want to talk about it, her first thought would be, my daughter's happy, I'm not being a good enough mother, just basically like freaking out about me when it's one simple thing that I did bad on and didn't talk to her about. When there's my dad who's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do that. And I try so hard to be like him, and when I don't think, I'm like, oh yes, Izzy, you did not think that much that day, which sounds super weird, because then at the end of the day, I'm like, I didn't make stupid problems for myself just for thinking way too much. And what I've learned over the years of overthinking is that I love to write, and it kind of helps slow down my brain. I love to write, and I have done these reflections and challenges on the screen behind me. And what it does for me is, even if it's negative, or even if it is positive, I just write it all down, and so then, when at the end of the day, I can look at it and be like, oh, Izzy, you were overthinking all this is not true. And sometimes just to calm my nerves, what I do is just like write what makes me happy. Like music makes me super duper happy. And at the end of the day, I'm not gonna be one of those people and be like, hey, don't overthink, because it's not something you can just stop. And I'm not gonna be like, break those bad habits, because they can't stop. Because even as I'm telling you about how I overthink, and I'm overthinking every single thing I'm saying right now, I will walk off the stage and overthink everything I have told all of you.
Our next speaker is Jake.
I tend to be pretty awkward when it comes to conversation or social interaction at all. And I'm sure we've all been there, in an uncomfortable setting, unsure of what to do, how to act, who to talk to, and even what to talk about. But the beginning of the solution came to me about a year ago, the improv team. And it sounds completely contradictory, but improv is a practice that takes continued time and effort to develop. And when you perform improv, you are following a process on stage. But what lies under that process is the key to something greater, and it's called finding the game. This is the process of understanding and then finding the game in real life. Now, when you begin an improv scene, you have to first establish who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and how you're feeling. And improvisers call this checklist base reality. But it's really just the starting point for the big takeaway here. When you're trying to figure out these things, just using your imagination and working with the other people on stage, you need to be making some sort of connection. And the same thing totally applies in real life scenarios. You want to be able to express how you're feeling and what you're trying to get out of a situation, and hopefully you can pick that up from the other person too. And in order to make these connections, you need to establish some sort of empathy. But how can we make these empathetic connections in an organic way? You need a game. A game will allow you to figure out what you're trying to get out of a situation, and even what the other person is, and apply yourself more fully to the situation you're in when you're understanding what's really going on. So when you're finding the game in an improv scene, you can use your imagination and all of the different things you might be able to create. But in real life, we have to work with what we're given. And this is where perception really comes in. You want to be able to pick up on what's around you, but below the surface value. You want to be able to look into the nuances of what's happening and even think about the social climate of where you're in right now. And you, for example, are all watching me from the audience, and I'm on stage, and you're watching me, but what are you really doing? Are you keyed in on everything I'm saying, really trying to understand the message I'm trying to share? Or are you using the time and the dark lighting to relax and think about some other problem you have in your life? This level of nuance is precisely what the game is about. When you're finding the game, you're figuring out, well, what am I really trying to do? And that's all it really is. And now, when you get out of your seats and go into the lobby in an hour or so, you're going to be putting yourself in a very social situation. And it's going to be up to you to figure out what you're going to make out of it. Maybe you're going to go up to a lot of the speakers and congratulate them, or maybe you're only going to talk to one or two people, or maybe you're just heading out. These different level of options is exactly how to play the game. And once you can figure out, well, this is what I'm going to try to get out of the situation, so I'm going to act this way and really apply myself to the role, that's precisely how you play the game. And that's it. The game is really not too complicated. It's not even a profound idea. It's just a simple connection you can make in your mind to better understand the scenarios you're in and feel more comfortable when you're in social situations. And so when you get out of your seats and go into the lobby or into any social situation, just remember to find the game.
Our next speaker is one of three speakers today performing their own poems, and this is Rowan.
When I was 5 years old, I began collecting rocks, but not in the way you'd expect a kid to take up the hobby of collecting. See, I was only in kindergarten, but I was just starting out my life as if I was born the wrong side of the bed. I would sift through the millions of pebbles in the playground like they were all the different aspects of my life scattered about. And harder than finding a needle in a haystack, I only tried to pick the good ones, the ones that I would be okay with keeping if the rest of me fell away with the world dissolving beneath my feet. I started to put them in my shoes so I could move them around with my toes all day to remind myself that there are still some parts of me that are all right. Now, this carried on until my teacher told me in front of the class that I couldn't keep a shoe full of rocks anymore. Then she dragged me outside to watch me discard the pieces of my life that obviously weren't good enough for her onto the ground. She told me I obsessed over the little things in a very gentle tone, but she also said there's something wrong with your daughter behind a closed door. And years later, that scene played over and over in my head like a record with an unseeable scratch that no matter how hard you try, you can never seem to really get rid of. I began to lock the front door of my house as if that was any way to keep her from entering my head anytime she pleases. I even went as far as to check the lock exactly 12 more times after my parents went to bed, just because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. Still, she followed me around like my shadow, what towered over me even in the darkest of rooms. Like a puppeteer, she manhandled my life, spinning me in circles till she had the ropes tied around my neck, and I had no choice but to just listen to her. My kindergarten teacher is the personified version of my obsessive-compulsive disorder. She was my scapegoat, so I didn't have to face those parts of myself anymore. She was the fool that I could point my finger at when things got tough. When sicknesses began to spread around the classroom faster than I could wash my hands, she just told me to wash them even more. I used to strip myself of my germ-coated clothes and sit in the shower with the scalding water beating the diseases from my body because I was never clean enough. I began to chisel away at the bacteria that seemed to have forever embedded itself into my fingerprints until it looked as if I was trying to claw my way out of my own skin. I've gotten so used to opening doors with my sleeve that I even do it in the confines of my own home. I've had people tell me that I need to find ways to soothe my thoughts, draw, read a book, go for a walk outside. And you don't think that if any of those worked, I would have tried them before. Just believe me, I would have. but I could go for a walk. See, I could walk to school if I wanted to, but the cracks turn into impossible canyons in the sidewalk, and my feet against the pavement make the same sound as the shackles on my wrist that have forever tethered me to this terrifying affliction. The other day, I found my kindergarten class picture buried in a folder in my room. I looked at myself in the corner and I could see the calm water facade, but a closer look through the screens of my eyes could show you the hurricane building on the inside. And I took that picture and I was this close to throwing it in the fire ablaze in my mind with the smallest sliver of hope that the memories would blow away with the wind. But now I don't have to blame anybody for this. Of course, I'm still bitter, but that teacher now is like the neighbor next door that you never really see anymore. You know, you acknowledge that she's there, but you don't really care. Now I'm learning to live with the parts of myself that I couldn't tolerate before. See, it's still me, but I will not be apologizing for it anymore.
Please welcome our next speaker. This is Nora.
When I tell you how bad I want cheese curds from Culver's right now, I can't even. They sound so good. But that reminds me, I was driving to go get my nails done with my friend the other day. I don't even know if she's here or not, but she probably is. But we were driving, and this little old lady rear-ended me behind me. You can't be mad at a little old lady, but I was, okay, maybe a little bit upset at Mr. George because he put me after like one of the best speakers ever. But this is my brain. Now, ADHD can be good, but it can also be bad, such as when little me decided that this was a good outfit and went out in public and wore that, or when I was an absolute menace to my parents and cried on the Target floor in the shoe section. But both of these things are ADHD, and ADHD is what makes me me. It gives me my personality and everything that I am, and it helps me with so many things in my life, like making friends and being a little more outgoing. But ADHD isn't always great, so I'm here to talk to you about the reality of ADHD. But what is ADHD? Well, for me, it is overstimulation, hyperfocusing, forgetfulness, trauma, chaos, anxiety, overthinking, panic attacks, and indecisiveness. Now, all of these factors come into play in every single second of my life. Now, all of these have a big effect on my whole life, but one area where they really have the most impact is in my relationships. Now, one relationship that I have is my family. Now, my whole family, out of 5 of us, 3 of us have ADHD, which makes it a little bit of a tornado and a whirlwind. But they all make me who I am. The one relationship that I really want to focus on tonight is my mom and I. My mom also has ADHD, and this makes it a little bit crazy and hectic. But trying to figure out each other's ADHD is like having a puzzle and not knowing where the last piece fits. You have all the pieces, but you just don't know where it goes. So trying to figure out that relationship with my mom has been very hard, but a very great opportunity, and I'm so glad that we've done it because I'm so thankful for the relationship that we have now and that we're working to get. But one other relationship that I've been really focusing on is a relationship with myself. Now, this is super important to me because I get so overwhelmed and overthink and crazy. I get so hectic, and I just need a release and an outlet sometimes. So learning that part of myself and figuring out what I can do to help myself, like go for a walk or go on a sunset ride, can really help me learn more about myself and my ADHD. But throughout this whole talk, I've been so scared because I know my family's in the audience, and I know I probably messed something up, and I'm overthinking the pair of shoes that I wore. But all of these things are ADHD, but ADHD is me.
Please welcome our next speaker. Here comes Myla.
This is Mr. George's classroom, and he teaches Honors English 10 and the Central Trend. And whether you've been in this classroom a million times like I have, or this is your first time seeing it, you can see the comfortable chairs, the beautifully painted ceiling tiles, and the interesting posters on the wall to look at. Now, look at some of these other classrooms within my school. My problem is I spend so much of my time in these classrooms. These classrooms have crowded spaces, no natural light, and the most uncomfortable chairs ever. So to fix this issue, I put myself into environments that help me the most, make me the most happy, the most productive, and the most relaxed. Because I have found this issue a big part in my life, I wanted to share a little bit about it with all of you. And I wanted to inform you a little bit more about your environment and how you can adjust it and change it for the better. So when I first wanted to talk to you all about this, I did some research, and I came across something called the social exchange theory, which says that a favorable workplace environment provides a sort of motivation for the employees to work better. And I was like, we can all put this into our lives, no matter if we're an employee, a student, or neither. And I looked into a company that did this very well, and look at some of these images. This company is Google, and their headquarters has implemented some things that you might think are totally unproductive towards the company's productivity and overall substantial way that they go about things. But the results are astounding. A study found that 78% of Google employees, of all employees, are happy within their workplace, but 98% of employees at Google are happy, and those results are crazy. Google has things such as a track, a swimming pool, different types of working environments, big windows, and huge plants to make their workplaces more beneficial to their employees. So how can we translate into our lives? Google has taken the idea that happiness equals productivity and made it so their company is more successful. So how can we use this in our own lives? And I have two suggestions for you, and the first is relocation. When you are stuck in a place like this where you just cannot get any work done, sometimes I just find myself in classrooms that are so drowning and I just cannot get anything done. So relocate yourself. During final season, I often find myself relocating to the public library to refresh, restart, and start on a new project, homework, or whatever I need to do. Now, you may not be a student, and you may be stuck at your house, and you just cannot get your project, or your personal goal, or any chore done. And I also encourage you, relocate. I love taking nature walks. That's one of my best advice for people who just cannot get any work done at their own house. Now, if you cannot physically relocate yourself to a new location, I also have another option for you, adjustment. And this are a couple of ways that you can adjust your environment where you are to make you more productive, happy, and overall relaxed. My first option, adding some natural light or opening a window. This is one of my favorite things to do when you just cannot get anything done. Another option, adding blankets or pillows. These always make me so much more relaxed in the place I'm working in. Find family or friends that might help you and motivate you to get your things done. And finally, change the lighting in your environment. Notice how the lighting change may have changed the feeling around you. The bright lights may have made it seem a little more sterile, or they blinded you and you're just like, I want the lights turned back off again. No matter what, the way that the lights changed made you feel differently about the working place around you. So, think about a place that you get your best work done. This may be Mr. George's classroom or the public library. No matter what, I encourage you, relocate or adjust your environment to make it seem just like the ones you get your best work done. And I know we all have something we're trying to get done or make ourselves more productive. Finals are just around the corner for us students, and adults always want to get some chores done around the house. That's why I encourage you to relocate or adjust your environment. I promise it will help you in more ways than you know.
Please, big round of applause for our next speaker. Here comes Alex.
My favorite science class is chemistry. Not just because I get to play around with elements, and not just because I get to light things on fire and have an excuse to do it. No. It's because of these chemical formulas. Because the unique thing about them is that they're made of elements that all have the unique properties, but when you combine them together, they create new properties they couldn't have on their own. And this is exactly what a leader can do to his team. A leader is capable of taking individual people who are great on their own, uniting them together, and creating a team that is so much better than those individual people by themselves. But why am I talking to you guys about being a leader? Well, it's because every single one of you out there is on a team, whether you realize it or not. A team is not just limited to sports. A team can literally be anything. A team can be a family, a team can be a group of friends, a team can even be you and your pet plant. A team can be anything. And I want to help you guys achieve great things on these teams with these 3 traits that make up a leader. And the first trait, which is probably the most obvious one, is to know your teammates. But when I say know your teammates, I don't mean like know their name, know their age, and know what they're good at. No, here's what I mean. Here's Jacob Terpstra. I've known this guy for roughly about 5 years now, and for 3 of those years, I only knew 3 things about him. And I'm not proud to say that. I knew his name, I knew his age, and I knew that he wanted to be an artist. But that's not knowing him. What I found out about this guy is that he feels like he needs to be more motivated to do things, which is why he joined the track team, so he could be pushed by coaches and his other teammates to accomplish a faster mile or a faster 800. That's what I mean by knowing your teammates. Know why they want to be on these teams in the first place. And once you know your teammates that well, you can move on to the second trait that makes up a leader, which is uniting the team. Now this can either be super easy or super hard. I mean, here's a company I work at. Before I came here, all my coworkers were like super divided, like they were complete strangers to one another. It wasn't until our boss, which is my dad, united them together, made them hang out with each other, and when I came there, they were like a family, like they thought of everyone as a brother or a sister. Now I'm not saying you guys have to unite the team to the point where you guys feel like a family, but you should unite them to the point where they would stick up for anyone on their team, even that guy that they used to hate. But these 2 traits have one thing in common. They are super hard without this trait right here, knowing yourself. Knowing yourself is by far the most important trait that a leader could possibly have. Here's me. I'm Alexander Dixon. I'm 16. I like taking funny photos of myself in the mirror, and I only thought of myself as these things for almost all my life. But that's not knowing yourself. You gotta know the bad things too. But these bad things can help you shape how you want to lead. Like for the fact that I feel alone sometimes. I don't want anyone on the team to feel alone, which is why I include people in. That's why knowing yourself is so important, because it shapes how you want to lead the team. So back to the chemical formula I showed you guys earlier. It consists of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And now these 3 elements are all vital to life, and they all have a very strong property. But when you combine them together to form this, which if you didn't know is glucose, you get a very strong molecule and the most important molecule we need in our lives. These molecules and these elements are just like the traits I told you guys today, because individually they are great in your life. But when you combine them together, you create a very, very strong trait. And this strong trait is being a leader.
Our next speaker is Juliana.
On May 18th, 2018, a little boy crossed the Mexican-US border. He was separated from his father, put on a plane, and arrived in Grand Rapids, Michigan to meet his new foster family. Not just any foster family, but my family. Freddie was 3, almost 4 when he came to live with us. In the 7 weeks he spent at our house, he bonded the most with me. Every night before Freddie would go to bed, he would cry out for his papi. Because of my proficiency in Spanish, I was able to comfort and connect with him in a way a non-Spanish speaker would not have been able to do. Knowing a second language is important for so many different reasons. Whether you're in high school or you graduated college in 1975, it is still not too late to learn a second language. If you aren't in high school anymore, there are many resources out there such as Duolingo. I would highly recommend Duolingo because you can learn from a variety of different languages such as Spanish, French, Chinese, German, Italian, and more. If you're still in high school, you can take one of the language classes offered at your school.
I plan on taking Spanish all 4 years of high school, and I hope to convince you of why you should either start or continue learning a second language. This leads me to my first point. People that speak a second language physically have larger brains compared to those that are not. On the screen, you can see an image of the brain, and this image highlights the frontal cortex, predial cortex, and temporal lobe. All of these areas of your brain are connected and are in charge of memory retention, reasoning, task flexibility, and problem solving. Because you have more brain mass in all these areas, you're better able to carry out all of those tasks. In this image here, you can see the difference in the gray matter volume between bilinguals and monolinguals, and you can see that bilinguals have much more brain matter. It is also much less likely that you will develop dementia if you know a second language. The reason for this is because your brain is better developed in the areas that are in charge of memory retention, as I mentioned before. And even if you do end up developing dementia, it will happen much later on in life. People that speak a second language also have an academic advantage. Because your brain is better developed, you are better able to pick apart the important information, whether that's in a book you're reading or a lecture your boss or teacher is giving. It is also much easier to concentrate in a distracting environment. Let's say you're trying to work on an assignment or a work project and everyone around you is being super loud and distracting. It is much easier to concentrate on what you're supposed to be doing rather than everything that is going on around you. People that are bilingual also tend to have more empathy compared to those that are not. Now, I'm not saying that just because you only speak one language means you can't have empathy towards someone else. What I am saying is that there's a strong positive correlation between bilinguals and emotional intelligence. Since emotional intelligence is a part of empathy, it could be argued that bilinguals are better able to understand how someone else is feeling. Learning a second language also makes you happier. A study was conducted, and it turns out that most people that know a second language tend to have a more positive outlook on life, increased self-esteem, and reduced stress. Humans are social creatures, and we yearn to make connection with others, so learning a second language is a great source of joy. Here's a picture of me and my family in Mexico last year. A few minutes before this picture was taken, we were ordering food at a local Mexican restaurant. The lady that was taking our order did not speak English super well, and because most of my family is proficient in Spanish, we were able to order our food in her first language. This made her life much easier, and we were able to make a connection with her that we otherwise would not have been able to make. And this is just one example of the many different connections you can make with people that don't speak the same language as you. This brings me back to Freddie. I don't know where he is or how he is doing, but I hope that the comfort and compassion that I was able to give with him and the time he spent with us will stick with him for the rest of his life. Even if he doesn't remember me, I will always remember him, and the impact that he made on my heart will stick with me until the day I die.
Big welcome for our next speaker. Here comes Alex.
Hi, my name is Alex, and I like giraffes and frogs, and my family, theater, clouds, and most of all, I love people. I love to talk to them and interact with them, make them smile and make them laugh. People tell me that I'm a kind and good friend. But there's somebody who I can't stand, and they follow me around everywhere. I am not nice to them. In fact, I found out that my pressures have caused this person to have severe mental health issues. So I am a bully, and my words and actions have really hurt this person. Her name is Alex Fletcher. So ever since I was little, I've had this perfectionist mindset, and this means that I set the bar so high for myself that whenever I don't achieve it, which I rarely do, I beat myself up about it and I make myself feel really awful. And this perfectionist mindset has grown for all of my life until it became a bully mindset, where I just beat myself up about every single thing and my mental health got worse and worse. For example, not too long ago, I failed my driver's test. And I was devastated because I expected myself to get a perfect or near perfect score. And so when I didn't, I cried in the driver's test lady's office, and on my way home, and at my house. And I listened to sad music for hours that day. And I was so devastated, I told myself that I hated myself. And this mindset was so toxic, and it made me feel really, really sad. So some other things that can actually come from this mindset are less motivation, worse self-control, anxiety and overthinking, a lack of confidence, depression, procrastination, and body image issues. So this perfectionist mindset can snowball until it becomes something really severe. And for me, it did. I didn't even realize what I was doing to myself until my mental health got so bad that I was forced to go to therapy. And I've been going to therapy for the past year, and I've learned various tips and tricks that I'm going to share with you today in hopes that you will take them with you and apply them to your life and really reflect on how you treat yourself. And I would like to say that I've been working really hard this past year, but I'm still not 100% better. In fact, I convinced myself that my TED Talk was really bad before I came on here because I was just being so mean to myself. So it's a process, and I'm working on it, and I've definitely got better. So first off, the simple vetting process of would you say that to your friend? So for example, when I failed my driver's test, I said things like, you're a bad driver and therefore a bad person, which is mean, and I would not say that to my friend unironically because it is mean. Next is talking to yourself. So a lot of your inner dialogue is subconscious, so talking aloud to yourself can seriously help you understand what you were saying. And it's also just really nice to check in with yourself. When I'm driving home, then I can be like, hey, Seth, how are you doing? And it's very nice. To help you do this, because it may feel a little uncomfortable, you can try splitting your mind into different parts, like the movie Inside Out. And then you can talk to a different part of yourself, and that can maybe help you. Next, you can hang a picture of yourself as a little kid in your room or your mirror. So that is a picture of me as a little kid, and if I was going to say something bad, then I would look at that picture and say it to the kid, and it would feel really bad because it's me, and then it would help you really understand. Next, in a Harvard Business Review by Melody Wilding, I found that you can name the bully in your mind. And one of her clients actually named his bully Darth Vader and put a Darth Vader action figure on his desk to remind him to be kinder to himself. So I actually did something like this in therapy, and I found out that the bully in my mind looks like the Little Caesars pizza guy in business attire. And this Little Caesars pizza guy is in charge of everything I hate. So for example, he controls the fact that I hate spiders and scary storms, and how I hate oranges, tomatoes, blueberries, and especially how I don't like bad pop songs and Taylor Swift. And he used to control the fact that I hated myself. But I have gone to therapy for the past year, and I learned who he was and what he was doing. And I've worked so hard to take back the reins and take his control away because I love Alex Fletcher.
Our next speaker is Kaiti.
This is Bob. Bob says hi. This is Bob's house after he had the audacity to cheat on you with your best friend Sally, and you decided to retaliate. But here's the thing. No one knows that you did this, and no one can know that you did this. Bob's parents are rich, angry, and have stupidly good lawyers, and you have to get away with this. But how? It's such a hard feat. How can you possibly do this? Well, my dear viewer, this is how to be a better liar. Step 1, be hot. Now, it's superficial, I'm well aware, but let's be real here. You're more likely to agree with someone that you like, and what do people like? Hot people. So, if you can, be hot. But again, keeping it real, not everyone can do this, so here's some other options. Maybe you could be stupid, because stupid people can't do things. They can't do things like lie and commit crimes. Or you could be righteous. How could the soup kitchen volunteer do such a heinous thing? Or you could be a suck-up, because the person that you're lying to is really gonna like that fuzzy little feeling of getting their ego boosted. Okay, great. Your image is set, and now it's time to actually lie. Someone will ask you, hey, where were you? And you are going to need an alibi. Here are some things to actually help you lie. Confidence, fake it, suck it up, don't be a wuss. Just pretend that you're better than whoever you're lying to. Or you're gonna need details. You can steal your details if you don't know them already. You need these details to make your story seem plausible and line up. So you can steal your details from stories, books, movies. That way you remember your details and they actually match up. And make sure it matches you. Okay, so you already are a person. People think of you a certain way, and you have to make sure that whatever you say matches your pre-existing image. Make sure it matches you as a person. Great. Now that you've actually lied, it's time to keep it. And this means don't tell anyone. This is the most important step, and no one actually follows it. This means not documenting it, not in your diary, not on TikTok, not in a time capsule you decide to bury 20 feet underground, nowhere. It's clean evidence against you, and it's also a reminder of what you did, and you do not want that burden on you. And also, take the topic head on. You committed a very public crime, and people are going to gossip. If you don't gossip with them, you look weird and suspicious, and you will bring attention to yourself. And if you don't take this topic head on, people are going to look at you funny. Okay, now that you've successfully gotten away with it, I'd like to congratulate you. And I'd also like to point out that I don't endorse lying or vandalism, and I shouldn't have to tell you that those things are bad. However, being a good liar isn't always a malicious and heinous thing. You lie all the time, whether it's a silly lie like, I accept the terms and conditions of the terms and conditions I did not read, or your haircut looks so good and you did not get uglier. You lie all the time and they're not always bad. Being a good liar can even help you catch some of those bad and nasty liars yourself. I hope you can take some of this information and use it in your life. Well, unless I lied to you.
Our next speaker, also reading a poem, is Kari.
Your life is not defined by other people. Let it be you that creates the ripple. Each day, a mountain you must overcome, a burden taken through which you must last. For what if tomorrow never comes? Don't let them decide who you are. You revolve around your own sun, your moon, your mind guiding a heated heart, however it may be bound. Mine has been bruised blue, battered and abused, shattered on the side of the broken road. Yet here I stand in front of you, arms open wide to the stunning world. Each day that you sit staring at the soundless scraps of what once was is a day lost in that hollow void in your chest. Your past mistakes are simply a past, not a pest. If you stop that flow, you start to stop every other thing from flowing out. I spent the time picking up every last shard, armoring myself with something that could never again be used against me. I am an artist that paints the world with who I am and not what they want me to be. I have long discarded the old, introverted shell. I am fresh, new, reborn. I learn to hold my own hand while dragging myself on 2 tired feet. So long have I just survived. I need to live. This year, I chose one word that would define me, and on that word, I rest my weary mind. I take comfort in the fact that even though I'm filled with all of these feelings, in myself, I have the greatest confidence. I choose to inspire.
Please welcome Keegan.
Amithius. You are Amithius. You are Amithius. You are Amithius. You know what? Everyone in this auditorium, you are all Amithius. For those of you that don't know, Amithius means ignorant in Greek. I just called you all ignorant, and no one really seemed to get mad at me when I called you Amithius. And I think that's because you didn't give the word meaning, and you didn't give the word a negative power. But once I told you that Amithius meant ignorant, I'm sure some of you weren't super happy with me, and that's because you gave the word a negative meaning and a negative power. But when we start to change the meaning of a word from a negative meaning to a positive meaning, it's going to allow us to live our lives more freely. Because words control our everyday life, and they affect us in pretty significant ways. I mean, words affect me all the time. They make me cry and cry and cry and cry. The point is, words affect me all the time. But once I started to change the meaning of a word, they didn't affect me as much as they used to. But in order to change the meaning of the word, I had to have something. I had to have confidence. I'd like to think I'm a pretty confident person. I think it takes confidence to stand in front of hundreds of people and show 4 pictures of me bawling my eyes out. But I also have confidence in my everyday life. Here's a picture of me in a hotel on my sister's 18th birthday where I decided to take a nap in the hall simply because I could. Because I didn't care if someone called me annoying, because if they did, I'm simply going to change the meaning of annoying to become something new, like we don't have the same type of fun. When I started to do this, these negative words didn't impact my life as much, because they started to free me, because changing the meaning of words is freeing. When we start to change the meaning of words, it brings light to a quote. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard it. "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." Because any one of you could throw a rock up at me right now, and I'm not gonna lie, it would kind of hurt. But if someone in the audience calls me loud, I'm simply gonna change the meaning of loud to become enthusiastic. So now that I'm wrapping up this TED Talk, I would say that if you ever find yourself in Greece and someone calls you Mythius, to change the meaning of the word, but I don't think any of you guys have any plans to go to Greece anytime soon. But I'm sure a lot of you in the next week or so are going to be called something, or something's going to be said to you that hurts your feelings or makes you feel bad. And when that time comes, I want you to think back to me standing on this stage, and I want you to change the meaning of whatever that word is to become something positive.
Please welcome to the stage, Cece.
These are some pictures of my best friend and I. We've known each other for about 3 or 4 years, and in the time that we've known each other, we've grown to be very close. She's become this person in my life that is there for everything, whether that may be me just needing someone to throw everything out to and talk to, someone to go on late night drives with, or someone just to laugh with. She's become this person. Now, while this all sounds great, and having this best friend relationship with someone is something that I truly do recommend everyone to have in their lives, I do know that having this particular bond with someone may not be the easiest thing and may not be present in some people's lives. But even if you're sitting out in the audience and thinking, wow, I wish I had that, you do. Because although this is the person that I would give the title of a best friend to, the 2 that truly deserve it are in the pictures behind me. Now, these are both of my parents, and I'm not necessarily saying that I'm best friends with my parents in the same way that I am with my best friend, because something about that would probably be a bit strange. But what I am saying is that these are the 2 who have showed me day after day that they are best fit for this title. When we think about a best friend, we think about the friend out of all friends that we're closest with. Think about that reliable person who shows up when we need them and is there for everything, while allowing you to have your sense of independence and space. Now, this is my dad and I grew up a very independent person and still am. No matter what it is, I truly do enjoy being by myself and handling everything on my own. And I just kind of realized that I'm better off like this, but at the end of the day, I still come home to my dad asking if there's anything that I need and if I'm okay. Now, you're all here tonight because this is a very stressful thing for kids to do. I mean, standing up in front of hundreds of people and speaking isn't the easiest thing. But during this time when your kids truly need you, you've showed up and you're here to support them. But to hold this title of a best friend, it's more than just showing up and being reliable. It's putting someone first, having their back, and finding joy in their happiness and success. This is my mom and I, and anyone who knows her knows that her entire life is about her kids. No matter what it is and how much she has to sacrifice, she will if it means that me or any of my 3 siblings have a smile on our faces. Now, like I said before, I'm a very independent person, and I've realized that I don't really need my parents all the time anymore because I've just grown up and have started to see things on my own. But at the end of the day, my mom is still the one who is throwing everything aside in the cases that I do need her, and I've always been a very introverted person and public speaking is not my thing, so when I told her that I was going to stand up and give a speech to everyone, she was the first one to congratulate me and tell me that she's proud of the person that I am and the person that I'm becoming. My parents are my best friends, and not in an ego-boosting way or in the way that I am with my best friend.
They are my best friends in the sense that they are the ones who have shown me ever since I was little what it means to hold this title, and that they're the ones who are there no matter what and when no one else is. So, if any of you are sitting out in the audience today thinking you don't have this title of a best friend, you do. All it takes is a change in perspective in what it means to hold this title and who's allowed to hold it. And to those of you who have created the title of what a best friend truly is, thank you for being not only what many of us have desired to have in our lives, but for being what many of us have truly needed.
Our next speaker is Rebecca.
If any of you have spoken to me for more than 5 minutes, then you've by now realized that I am a little bit weird. But for those of you that knew me in middle school, you also know... Wait a second. I'm so sorry, folks. That is not how you spell that. Let me just... Okay. Now that we've got that out of the way, I want you to think about how that felt. Not my terrible acting, but the moment that you realized that I had misspelled my own topic and believed I was illiterate for a good 10 seconds. What was your emotional reaction? Maybe pity? Judgment? Amusement? Whatever it was, I can almost guarantee that all of you had one thought in common. I'm glad that isn't me. We've all thought it before, that visceral pity and disgust when we witness someone else do something that we would find humiliating. Maybe one of you out there noticed my mistake and thought, I could never do an event like this. I hate public speaking. But here's the thing. Your ideas are probably totally TED Talk worthy. I think we've given this thought a little too much power. In my case, I used to love going to Comic-Con, and then I read some really mean comments on someone else's, a cosplayer's Instagram post. My love for it disappeared. Now, I'm not giving this talk tonight to say that embarrassment isn't a crucial emotion, because it is. It can be a powerful lesson and a valuable feeling, but it loses that value when we prioritize it over sharing what we love, showing enthusiasm, or the bare minimum of being respectful to others. As a high school student who's been in embarrassment and the one embarrassed for others, I've come to one very important realization. We've given embarrassment too much power, and we need to take that power back if we want to become happier and more fulfilled people. The first step in this is recognizing that no matter how embarrassing your initial action, your reaction is what people remember, and it's the only part that you can control. I can demonstrate with a personal example. So I row crew, as many of you know, and this fall I was rowing in a single scull when I flipped, because I hit the men's 8 in front of my entire varsity team. Now this is objectively really humiliating, but what sticks out in my coaches' and teammates' minds is not that I flipped, but that I hyperventilated, burst into tears in a porta potty while changing into my coach's dry clothes, and vowed to quit and join golf, which I did not do. I don't like golf. I made the situation a lot worse. I think what makes embarrassment so frightening for a lot of us is the lack of control. But the thing is, we do have control. We can mitigate the embarrassment that we experience by handling it with grace and confidence, even as we wither inside. So the next time that you trip up the stairs, or cough milk out of your nose, or flip a $15,000 boat, try laughing it off. People may even respect you more for it. However, we haven't just given embarrassment control over ourselves. If you've spent any amount of time in American high school, you know precisely what I'm talking about. You've witnessed firsthand the power of secondhand embarrassment. Now, sometimes us high schoolers put it to good use. We use it to shut down unacceptable social behaviors with this benign peer pressure. But most of the time, it just becomes an excuse to be cruel to those who fit outside of social norms. Once you leave high school, the things that people find embarrassing vary from person to person. But don't pretend that you don't have an ick, because you do. You're not better than any of us. Maybe for you, it's cosplayers, or people who post Minion memes. I know for me, it's roller skiers. They're so weird. But in all of these examples, they're just people doing what they love, and they're not hurting anyone. So what gives us the right to judge? I want to give you a personal challenge. The next time that you witness your personal ick, maybe it's your neighbor strapping on his arm monitor to power walk down the street in spandex, or an angsty preteen lip-syncing to a sped-up pop song on TikTok, before you whip out your phone to write a snarky comment, or you roll your eyes, ask yourself if they seem happy with what they're doing. And then ask yourself, are you that confident when you do what you love, or are you afraid that if everyone else saw, they would be the ones laughing at you? And that's what I'm really trying to get at tonight. That moved a little quick. Embarrassment and the power that we've given it has created a stifling climate for people everywhere, and I've witnessed this firsthand. Sometime in my freshman year, I realized that some of my favorite hobbies, interests, and even goals were embarrassing. I did everything in my power to avoid embarrassment, and I eschewed opportunities because I didn't want to look stupid. Looking back though, the same things that made me an embarrassment also made me a really happy kid. I loved my Harry Potter t-shirts and my giant thesaurus, and singing Hamilton in public at the top of my lungs. As I was working on this talk, I realized that I missed that happiness, and I would rather be happy and risk a little humiliation now and then than be constantly anxious and maybe be socially desirable. That's why I'm here tonight, talking and sharing my feelings to a bunch of people that I will have to look in the eye after this, because I want to tell you what I wish I had heard in middle school. Life gets so much better once you learn to embrace embarrassment. Thank you.
Here comes Toby.
First and foremost, I would like to thank all of you for coming out here tonight and sitting and watching and supporting us as we all give our TED Talks. But I'm also willing to guess that that's not the only thing you've been doing. I bet that during the speeches, some of you may have been tapping your foot, fidgeting with a button, playing with something in your hands or in your pockets, maybe shifting in your seat, or any other small, mindless motion. This may seem insignificant. You might have noticed me doing it awkwardly up here, but maybe you hadn't noticed you yourself was doing it until I pointed it out to you. What you may not know is that these mindless motions can actually make all the difference when it comes to focus and creative thinking. Now, I am a very in-motion person. Whenever I'm at a desk doing schoolwork, I'm always doing something with my hands, and normally that takes the form of doodling. In fact, the margins of my papers often look something like this. And you were all given a notepad and a pen at the very beginning of the show, and I'm sure that you're nothing like me. And I'm sure that if you were to look down at those papers right now, the only thing you would see would be the most deep, most thoughtful, most attentive notes you could have possibly been taking. Or not. Don't worry, we're all human. And if I was in your position and asked to give my full attention to an audience for an hour and a half and I was given a notepad and pen, I too would doodle, maybe draw a little, maybe play tic-tac-toe with the person next to me. But even as strange as it may seem, this actually helps you focus on what's going on up here. Why? This may seem counterintuitive because you're actively distracting yourself from something, but in reality, the mind and the body work in tandem, and the mind is actually sharper when the body is doing something repetitive. Another example of this would be walking, and I am a very avid walker. I always do that when I need to clear my head or come up with new ideas. In fact, most of the preparation I did for this TED Talk was done pacing. And again, on paper, it seems like it shouldn't work because you're actively taking yourself away from what needs to be done. When in reality, walking gives you a chance to clear your head, get your creative juices flowing, and even distracts you from the work, which can be necessary because if you're focusing too long, it can actually burn you out quicker. And there's actually plenty of evidence to back this up as well. Studies show that people who are walking not only perform better on cognitive tests, but also have better creative thinking capacity. And that people who are doodling are just able to focus on things better, but also have reduced stress, which is very important. And how can you apply this to your own lives? Take the idea of thinking outside of the box. It's a pretty common allusion to creative thinking, but the box is purely metaphorical, right? What if it wasn't? What if the box is anywhere where you need to do work, you need to think or do creative thinking? It might be a desk, a cubicle, an office, your room. Whatever it is, the first step to getting out of that box mentally is to get out of the box physically. Maybe that's standing up and taking a walk, taking a much needed respite when you can't focus and you're cloudy on your work. Maybe the box is a math question on a test that you can't figure out. Or maybe it's a letter you need to write to a colleague. You can get out of that box physically by maybe taking just 30 seconds to scribble a little, doodle on the side of your paper. You'll find that you'll come back re-energized and more able to do the work that you weren't able to before. Now, if you were to look down at those doodles you may or may not have on your papers, know that those aren't signs of you being bored or being an unattentive audience member. Know that you've actually been doing yourself a service the whole time without even knowing it, and you've actually been able to focus on the TED Talks that came before me even more. And if you continue and maybe even just start doodling right now, you'll get more out of the TED Talks that follow as well.
Our next speaker is Abby.
So when I was younger, my parents would always have me and my sister spend lots of time wandering outside just to see what we could find. Whether that was a caterpillar like the one I'm holding, a flower, or even just a rock, just so we could appreciate the world around us. And many people do not take time to appreciate the little things, whether that's from being too busy or just simply not caring at all. And that can lead to a stressful life, but there really is a simple solution. People need to stop looking at the big picture and start focusing on the little things to provide happiness and an overall better life. And I know all of us are extremely busy. Our days are filled with things like work, school, maybe a sport, family, social life, and all these other countless things that just completely book our schedules. And with a booked schedule, people seem to forget the surrounding blessings in our life and just simply don't take time to care about them at all. But none of us are too busy just to take 1 minute out of every day to focus on something small, because it actually can impact our mood immensely. A study showed a third of adults who said that they were truly happy for 75% of the time, and a quarter of them said it was 3 or 4 little things that cheered them up. And that proves to us that focusing on little things can actually impact our mood. And there are countless of little things that we can focus on, but there's just a few that I tend to prioritize the most. The first one being sunsets. The sun sets every night, which fills the sky with beautiful colors and makes me feel at peace when I watch them. And when the sun does set, the stars come out and I look for constellations like the Big Dipper. And another little thing is music. Music goes with any situation, and that's why I really love it. And I love driving with the windows down and sticking my head out, and of course my friends, because they never fail to make me smile and laugh. And the last little thing is when my cat chooses to sleep by me, because it makes me feel loved and cared for, even though I'm allergic to him. And just because these few things fill me with happiness does not mean they're gonna fill you with the same happiness. We're all different people. We're not gonna find joy in the same few things. Maybe if you're an adult, you find joy in your morning cup of coffee, or a Costco run, or maybe a coupon, but everyone should find the few things in their life that make them happy and prioritize that, and appreciate the feeling of being happy. Because when I started prioritizing these few things, I started to live a lot more happy, and I started to feel much more at peace, and I started to forget a lot of the stress factors in my life, just because I started focusing on these few things. So why wouldn't you want to as well? And by appreciating the little things means we are filling our life with what nurtures us and what motivates us to keep going. And when you prioritize little things, you can live with less stress, strengthen your relationships, learn more about yourself as a person, and even lead you to bigger and better things. Because the monumental moments in our lives are likely results of the little moments that we had experienced previously. And I know our world can get pretty hectic and stressful, and we always tend to dwell on the stressful events that might be coming, but we should be prioritizing the little things. So I'm gonna give everyone in the audience just a small task, and it's nothing crazy or anything. I just want everyone to think. Think about something small that makes them happy. Maybe you're thinking about the person you're sitting next to, or how it's almost summer. I know I'm thinking about something right now on the stage as I'm gonna go off and hug one of my friends for always supporting me through this, but I'm gonna leave everyone with one last thing. Start prioritizing the little things in life. You won't regret it.
Our next speaker is Gabby.
Raise your hand if you think these are some pretty good grades. Now, raise your hand if you think that they could be a little better. Now, you may be saying, what could be better? Well, take a look at this A-push grade, 93.32. Really? That's so close to an A-. And you may ask, why is it bad that it's close to an A-? Well, I can't have an A-. I can't have anything lower than an A, because that's too bad. That's way too bad. I need to keep that 4.0. I need to keep those 100%. And you're gonna be thinking, this girl's crazy, what? And Mr. George said the same thing. When I was able to recite to him the second decimal number of my grade, he called me crazy. He told me I need to relax. I do not need to stress over it like that. But the thing is, I can't not stress over it. I cannot stress over my grades and other things like this. It's all because of this thing that I like to call perfectionism. Now, perfectionism is a thing that constantly happens in my life over and over, every second, every minute of everything that I do. And it affects my life so much.
It's rooted in many different things. There's the academic standard. Like I said, I must have the 100%, I must have always, especially here at FHC. There's also the athletic standard. At FHC, we have state championships and all these different exceedings in athletics, and I just feel like I need to be that. I went from baseball to softball to lacrosse, and I expected myself to do so good. Keep scoring every game, keep doing all this stuff, because I expected so much of myself, and I expected myself to be perfect. Now, there's also the social standard. When I'm searching through Instagram and I see all these people with their friends, and I'm like, am I supposed to be like that? Am I supposed to have all these people and all these friends and post everything I'm doing? And lastly, there's also the beauty standard. We all know Kylie Jenner and her beautiful face and her perfect everything and looking good and whatever that is. And I've noticed that this is such a recurring thing in my life, and this is where everything has been rooted. I was scrolling through the internet the other day, and I found this quote, and it talks about how just reaching for an excellent point and reaching for excellence leads way better outcomes than if you set for perfection. Perfection leaves you feeling sad and let down when you don't hit that spot. And I've noticed that this can connect a lot to my life. When I set goals for perfection, I notice that I find myself feeling unhappy. I find myself drained. I find myself with really low self-esteem, and I find myself really let down when I don't hit that goal that I was set for, because it was perfection. Not only do I see this in this mental part, but I also see it in my family. This is my dad. Him and I, when I was little, were the best of friends, the best relationship ever. I was always holding his hand. I was always with him. He was always by my side. I was his girl. And I noticed that as high school started, that started to drift. I kind of built up these walls between him and I, and this relationship kind of broke down. Now, the reason for this was because I felt like I wasn't reaching his standards. I wasn't his perfect. I wasn't his definition of what he wanted me to be. But the thing is, he's an amazing dad. I could not ask for better. He's the best dad ever. But still, I put up these walls away from him because I felt like I was not his definition of perfect. But the thing is, nobody is perfect. Nobody in this audience is perfect. Nobody who is super successful and smart is perfect. And when I think back on this TED Talk, I think about how I feel like I didn't reach you in a perfect way. I feel like I stuttered over this word and I forgot this part that I wanted to say. And I just feel like I didn't perfect this TED Talk as much as I could. And I look out and I see all of you and I realize that you guys aren't perfect either. Maybe you want to be that perfect FHC parent, or you want your kid to be that perfect FHC always 100%. That's just not going to happen because none of us are perfect. So instead, reach for that 80, that 90, just do your best. Nobody's perfect, and that's okay. So now that I've laid it all out there, I'd like us all to realize that we will never be perfect.
Please welcome to the stage, here comes Sawyer.
This is prisoner 349043, and he was convicted of murder. In 2010, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Think about that. That's 25 years of his life essentially wasted, and that put him in a very dark time. And in this darkness, he sought out purpose. And this purpose came in a manila envelope. And in that envelope was hope. And in that envelope was math. With math came redemption. He put all of his papers across his walls, from the easy problems to the more advanced ones. He worked his way up, teaching himself how to do math. He didn't quite learn it in school, but he learned in a unique way that was self-taught. So, what is 2 plus 1 over 1 plus 2 over 11? Now you might be saying this isn't a real math problem, it's not a real fraction, it looks like kind of made up, you know? But this is a continued fraction, and the answer is 37 over 13. Continued fractions are how mathematicians study improper fractions and how they work and the science behind them. This is Christopher Havens, and this is the same man that I showed you earlier, except this time he redeemed himself. He used improper fraction studying to become a professional mathematician while he was in prison. And he turned his prison into purpose. And I want you to know today that it's never too late to turn your prison into purpose. We might not be in a real physical prison, But sometimes life feels that way, and we have to find a way to find purpose within that. But how? How are we supposed to know that it's never too late? How are we supposed to know the actions that we're supposed to take when it's never too late to turn things around for the better? We need to turn our prison into purpose, and it all starts in the mind. In the mind, you have to accept that it's not too late. All great ideas start in the mind. If you can think it, then you can make it happen. Next, you got to take action. As a runner, I run every single day in pursuit of running faster and faster, and I run a 4-minute and 39-second mile. And that wouldn't have been possible without the habits and repetition and action behind that. Christopher Havens worked on his math every single day, and that got him to the place where he is now. Next, develop those ideas. In the development of the idea that it's never too late to turn things around for the better. I'm a drummer, I run, and I'm a part of my family, and all three of those aspects are impacted by the idea that it's never too late to turn things around for the better. So develop it over all aspects of your life. So all in all, I want you to get mad in the mind, in the action, and development in order to turn your prison into purpose, just like Christopher Havens did. But what exactly is a prison, and what is purpose? Well, your prison is the day-to-day struggles, the small problems in life, and the curveballs that life throws at you. And the purpose is the happiness that can be found in resilience and turning things around for the better. So if you can find a way to follow those 3 steps in the mind and the action and development, then you can know that it's truly never too late.
Here is our 3rd student performing their own poetry. Here's Annika.
I am the moth you found on your screen porch. Sorry for invading your personal space. I can go now if you'd like, or at least I can try. I can go back to shy and keep wondering why you don't hear when I cry. If you do, you don't reply. But it's okay, it's fine. I don't want to be a bother or a burden. I just keep coming back because, well, there's this light shining bright and it looks like the moon. And I swear that somehow it's coming from you. I need a light to cling to. It's how I survive, how I find my way through the loneliest nights. So I was wondering if maybe, if it's all right, you could give me a chance to make you my starlight? My life hinges on your next silent syllable, and I feel those hinges creak and your voice crack, and a yes would paint the sky like an ultraviolet sunrise, but a no is nothing new. Night after night, I find myself flitting back to the door, finding that spot where there's a tear in the mesh you can't see when awake, or a dent in the door frame from a lovely mistake, or a word on your heart, like cursive icing on a cake, I love you. A voice in my head says you left it for me. I don't care if it's lying, I want to believe, and there's always a chance, right? My fragile wings and exposed heartstrings scraped on the wires as I force myself into a dimension where I'm not wanted, but I've decided I belong. No matter how tiny my opportunities are, no matter how impossible it feels, it seems it is. No wonder nobody hesitates to flick me away, to knock the scales from my wings and the wind from my soul. I throw myself at you, like a pebble at your window. Have I forgotten? I can fly. So maybe I don't always know what I'm doing, but I still believe that you're worth pursuing. I guess though I changed before when I grew these wings, my transformation's not done. That's the truth, though it stings. And no, I'll never be a beaming butterfly, but I know that you'll notice when I let myself shine. The colors I'm cloaked in, they'd be blend in with dust, but look under. There's magic and whimsy and trust, and when the shimmer of light hits my wings, full of hope, you might catch a glimpse of my stage whisper glow. Yeah, sometimes I say too much or too little. Sometimes I get too close or too distant, but now I'm right where I need to be. Now it's not my fault if you still can't see, but you will. The bats and the owls will notice me too. I'd rather be free to soar than hidden from view. Soon, I'll be safe as the brightest star in the very constellation I once gazed at from afar, dewy-eyed. But begging for mercy only makes me look weak. If I tell you I'm beautiful, then you'll believe. And you'll open your eyes, and you'll open the door, and I won't have to fight through smoke and mirrors anymore. I'll find an escape. I'll find a home. I'll find a place in someone's heart, and I won't be lonely all through the night, because we'll cling to each other's lights. No, I could never be happy on that screen porch, so I'm coming around, knocking on your front door, so you'll welcome in the moth, who might be something more.
Please welcome to the stage. Here comes Aiden.
So, it's very important for everyone here to understand just how revolutionary this picture is. You see, when they shot the particle out of this emitter, it went through, it shattered off the gold instead of going through. This was shattering for the scientific community. Instead of the plum model, where it's a positive C filled with electrons, it proved there was a heavy nucleus. So I was a little bored during that, wondering when on earth I would stop talking about this plums model and the atomic theory. But you see, that's okay. Boredom is good, and it's something that needs to be addressed. But why? Why talk about boredom? Because now more than ever, technology consumes our lives. See, if you're anything like my little siblings, you love technology. Before you sit down for dinner, you gotta find that perfect video to watch. Or even at the end of class, you pick up your phone for a few minutes to kill. And this all adds up to a staggering 7 hours. These are all small moments in the day when we choose to pick up our phone and technology instead of being bored. But why? Why be bored? You see, because it can help with creativity and problem solving. When we look at some of the most brilliant minds in all of human history, such as Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein, their revolutionary ideas were put forth when they were bored. Isaac Newton was in isolation due to the plague that was roaming through Europe, and that was when he put forth his theory of gravity, kinematics, physics, and optics. He changed the world when he was bored. And Albert Einstein, his wonder year in 1905, where he wrote 4 revolutionary papers going on to win a Nobel Prize, was when he was working at a patent office and bored. They went on to change the world because they were bored. But not all of us are going to do that. So how can we apply this in our own lives? Recently in English, we were given an assignment to write 10,000 words. And no matter how good of an idea you have, sometimes you just run out of words to say. And after sitting there, bored, I was able to finish the 10,000 words and complete the assignment. Again, all because I was bored. So, on to another point. It helps with self-improvement. It gives us a time for self-reflection to seek a better state of being. Recently, when I was at my meal break at McDonald's, I came to the conclusion that I was consuming too much pop. And I only came to this conclusion because I was sitting there, bored. My mind wandered off and I had nothing else to do. And I sought the better state of being, and I decided to purge pop for the rest of this month. So, in conclusion, this atomic model is very revolutionary, as it led to the development of quantum mechanics and nuclear chemistry, which then led to the advancement of the atomic bomb, leading to the Cold War, and eventually changing the world. So, if anyone was bored during that again, but maybe your perception of it changed, because now you know boredom should be explored.
Please welcome our next speaker to the stage. Here's Ashley.
When I was 13 years old, I spent my entire summer experiencing aches and pains throughout my entire body, and I had no idea why. These pains ranged from little tiny aches in my hands to a full body lockdown where I was just engulfed in pain. Later that summer into the early fall, I ended up going to the hospital and figuring out that these pains were the result of celiac disease, which meant that I couldn't eat any of the cakes, cookies, brownies, pretzels, Oreos, and any of the other things that normal people could eat. But here I am today, standing in front of you, giving this TED Talk and doing my favorite activities like riding my horse and eating my favorite gluten-free foods. How on earth did I make this switch? I did this through positive perception, which is the ability to take the good out of a bad situation. I like to see this as a group activity rather than something we all go through alone. For example, if I walk out here and I'm all smiles and confidence, I have a much better chance of giving a positive appeal to you all rather than if I was just so scared. As you can see from this quote, whatever we see in a situation is what we're going to take out of it. When I was driving home from Alabama on the way home from spring break, I was like 4 a.m., pouring rain, and I was thinking about this TED Talk. I knew that I wanted to model positive perception, but I had no idea how I was going to do it. I ended up deciding that I was going to do a poem, and I would like to read those thoughts to you today. My life felt complete. When I found joy in the people around me and the things I had, I realized that positivity is possible. But when I was sick and it seemed like my world would end, all hope of finding joy in an unexpected situation was gone. When this new disease swarmed my life, forming a new line I couldn't cross, a positive view of the situation was hard to find. We live in a world where positivity is hard to come by, and when I was sick, my brain refused to let me see anything other than the negative. Negativity was my only option. Now, this may seem like a fairly negative poem, and celiac disease was a very negative experience for me. However, positive perception is all about taking the good in a bad situation and flipping it around. So I want to read you the same poem, just a different way, backwards. Negativity was my only option. When I was sick, my brain refused to let me see anything other than the negative. We live in a world where positivity is hard to come by, and a positive view of the situation was hard to find. When this new disease formed my life, forming a new line I couldn't cross, all hope of finding joy in an unexpected situation was gone. But when I was sick and it seemed like my world would end, I realized that positivity is possible. When I found joy in the people around me and the things I had, my life felt complete. I don't know how I would have gotten through celiac disease in that rough summer if I didn't have the people around me that I do today and positive perception. Positive perception can be proved to you through my situation, and you can also see it in your lives today. It changes our world completely. If we see only the bad in our world, it's not going to go so well. But if we see the positive, our lives are going to be so much better moving forward. My growth through celiac disease can prove to me, and it can prove to you, that positive perception is power.
And here comes our final speaker of the evening. Here's Autumn.
This is Lauren. She was my camp counselor when I was 12 years old. I had an amazing time with her that week, and I knew I wanted to keep in contact, so the second I got home, I wrote her a letter. I wrote how amazing she was, I wrote my favorite memories with her, and of course that I missed her, even though it had only been a day. This is us now. 4 years later, and our bond is closer than ever. We wrote letters to each other for about a year before I sneakily put my phone number in the corner, hoping she would reach out, and she did. If I had not written that first letter, I would not have one of the closest people in my life today. Handwritten letters are becoming less and less common in our society because of the rise of technology. Instead of taking time to write a letter, you would probably send a quick text or an email to show your appreciation. I'm not saying that's bad, but just imagine going out to your mailbox one day, and instead of seeing a bill or ad for a business nobody's ever heard of, you see a letter. That would probably make you feel very loved and appreciated, wouldn't it? Because things are better when they're handwritten. For example, in 7th grade, our teacher recommended that we start writing letters because of how impactful they can be. So I took him up on this, and I started writing letters. This is one I wrote to my youth group leader. This was her response. You can see she felt very special and loved from my letter. You never know what people are going through in life, and a simple act of love really can go a long way. Writing letters can also strengthen a connection or a relationship in your life. This is Jerry. She was on my tour group when my family and I went to Europe in 2019. And these are just some of our letters. We've been writing letters to each other for 4 years now with no plans of stopping, and she even calls herself my Texas grandma. We could have easily exchanged email or text, but writing things out is so much more meaningful, and now I have tangible letters that I can go back and read. Now, for those of you who don't write letters or don't write them often, here are some things to keep in mind when you do. Start with the basics. Start with what you appreciate about the person, but try and go a little bit more in depth than the simple, "You're awesome." I love it when you tell jokes. They always bring a smile to my face. The more in depth you go, the better. And then include some memories. When the person is reading your letter, they're sure to relive that memory in their head, and that'll bring a smile to their face. Now, I know you have so much information floating around your head from all the other talks you've heard tonight, but I want you to do one final thing for me. Flip over your FHC Inspires notepad, and I want you to write down one name. One singular person in your life who you can write a letter to. Go ahead. Now that you have that, I urge you, either tonight or tomorrow, to actually write and send that letter. What are you waiting for? Tell people you care about them. Tell people you miss them. Tell people you love them. Life is short, and if we don't take time to appreciate the people we have in our lives, they're going to be gone before we know it. Now, my hope is that your letters can either make somebody's day or get you a new best friend like Lauren, or maybe even a Texas grandma, who knows. It all starts with you, a pen, and a paper.
All right, let's bring them out one more time. We can clap for all of them. Here they come. Here's Reagan, Izzy, Jake, Rowan, Nora, Myla, Alex, Juliana, Alex, Kaiti, Kari, Keegan, Cece, Rebecca, Toby, Abby, Gabby, Sawyer, Annika, Aiden, Ashley, and Autumn. And that was outstanding clapping. That was a long clap. There are 3 special people, so the entire show, thanks for being here, by the way, just really thankful that you came. The entire show is totally student-run and student-directed. I just kind of stood there and watched them do it. And I would like to give a huge round of applause to each of the 3 student directors that ran the show here. First, Kylie Doubler. Ishana. And Heather. All right, we practiced this bow. We'll see how it goes, and then they will be quickly in the back, and we'd love for you to put your notes in the shoe boxes and get some pictures with everybody in the back. Here they are one more time. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.